Folks, we're into week 4 now and continuing to work on acceptance. We saw last week that acceptance can take a variety of forms, can't it? We can have acceptance by promise, acceptance by performance, acceptance by silence. And with acceptance by performance, we saw that part performance can mean a couple different things. It can have different legal consequences depending on the manner of acceptance that was invited or required or was reasonable in the context of the offer. This week, we will move into the doctrine of imperfect acceptance, an acceptance that tweaks the terms of the offer a little bit. Question, when an acceptance tweaks an offer, what effect does that tweaking have? Does it become part of the deal? Yes or no? In what circumstances? Be careful in noticing the differences between two different kinds of tweaks, we might say. Additional terms and changed terms. Additional terms are when an answer, an acceptance, takes the original offer and adds something to it. So an offer has certain terms, an imperfect acceptance with additional terms agrees with those terms but adds something to it. What effect? Changed terms by difference take the original terms and alter them a little bit. Does that have a different implication for the offer than the additional terms? Pay careful attention to these subtle differences. Also notice the difference between the restatement and the UCC. We will get different rules for the sales of goods, and among those rules for the sale of goods, we will have different rules depending on the number of merchants involved. So that's a lot of detail, a number of permutations, and you really want to pay attention. Be slow, be thorough, be attentive to detail as you work your way through these readings on imperfect acceptance. From there, we'll move on to consideration, which we've discussed in a number of contexts. You really can't get very far into contracts with talking about consideration, but this week we will truly define it and understand it. We'll find that consideration has essentially two elements. One, it must be mutual, and two, it must be bargained for. Mutual and bargained for. As you do the readings, as you study the restatement rules and read the cases, pay careful attention to those two elements of the consideration definition. And then, as if that weren't enough to study in 1 week, we will move on to the question of whether agreements can ever be enforceable in the absence of consideration. We've said consideration is an element of a contract, and that is true as a general rule, but as we like to do, there's an asterisk. And the asterisk says, in certain contexts, we will enforce an agreement even in the absence of consideration. The restatement gives us a couple of rules on that. We will need to learn them and discuss their policy implications, what they mean for this universe of agreements that we deem enforceable. So we have a lot of content this week. You're going to find the pace picking up in class. Don't be intimidated. Do your readings carefully, thoroughly. Flag the issues that you don't understand. We'll discuss in class, and we can come out of this week having mastered a good deal of material. Thanks, folks. See you soon.